What if I told you that nothing in ParaNorman is it real, and could the entire film be an episode of childhood schizophrenia? What if the ghosts never existed, and everything was only happening in Norman's mind? Do you really believe that cursed town, the zombies and the witch were supernatural? Or are we facing a completely unreliable narrator? This dark theory changes everything you think about the film. Observe the signs, the ignored details, the strange behaviors. Because when you pay attention, everything starts to make sense. And that's when the story gets disturbing. But before continuing, you need to understand one thing. Almost no one is talking about this theory. And when you notice these hidden clues, it's impossible to watch. ParaNorman similarly, if this really is a delusion constructed in his mind, then the entire film changes meaning, and you won't want to miss out on this disturbing discovery. So go ahead and like the video now, because it helps it reach more people who haven't yet noticed these details, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations, because what comes next might be even more unsettling. From the very first minutes of ParaNorman, something doesn't seem right. Norman talks to his dead grandmother as if it were the most normal thing in the world, and the strangest thing, nobody around reacts with surprise. Not the family, not the school, not the neighbors. This raises the first red flag. He doesn't start seeing ghosts in the sea movie. He's been seeing them since before. In other words, we are dealing with an old, constant behavior that the family itself has learned to tolerate, or worse, ignore. The school treats him as a strange boy, someone on the fringes, socially isolated. His classmates mock him, the teachers avoid him, and the whole town sees him as the weird boy who talks to himself. But is he really talking to ghosts? Or is he just reacting to what only he sees and hears? The film never proves that ghosts exist. It only shows what Norman sees. This is the key to understanding what is perhaps one of the darkest theories about a children's animated film. If this theory is true, then everything we watch is a distorted version of reality, constructed by a conflicted mind, trying to make sense of its own suffering. Norman may be suffering from childhood schizophrenia, Norman Osborn occult blood disorder, ORON, a rare but real disorder that causes visual and auditory hallucinations, disorganized thoughts, and paranoid behavior. And all these signs are present, even subtly, throughout the film. Does he see the dead, or does he see what his mind projects to cope with loneliness, rejection, and lack of affection? When he begins to be pursued by zombies, the line between reality and fantasy is already completely blurred, and the viewer is dragged along into Norman's mind without realizing it. And here's the most sinister detail. Everything supernatural that happens in the movie only happens because Norman believes he needs to save the city from a curse. He's the one who creates this mission. He's the one who assumes this responsibility. And from there, events begin to escalate. Zombies appear, the sky darkens, the city panics. But stop and think. Does anyone else see these things before he tells them? Or does it all begin after Norman states that it's happening? This is very important because this could indicate that what we are witnessing is the manifestation of an outbreak and not a reality shared by all. You start to realize how the script constructs everything from his perspective. The camera is always at Norman's point of view. We don't have neutral scenes where other characters experience the supernatural without his presence. This is very unusual, especially in animation. And when it happens, it's not by chance, it's a directorial choice. This raises the question, what if the entire film was built to show what it's like to live trapped inside your own mind, believing that everything around you is real, even when it isn't? Few films have the courage to explore this type of narrative, but ParaNorman has all the elements to be one of those cases hidden in plain sight. And if that's the true meaning of the film, then we're not talking about a fun, supernatural adventure. We're talking about a boy facing demons that no one else can see, because they only exist inside him, and that makes everything even heavier, more tragic, and more fascinating. And that's where we begin to understand the true signs the film leaves along the way, some almost invisible. And if you're starting to see this pattern, pay even closer attention to what comes next, because from here on out, things are going to get even stranger. And it is from here that the theory about ParaNorman it ceases to be merely a bold interpretation and begins to sound frighteningly plausible. The turning point occurs when Norman states with conviction that he needs to save the city from an ancient curse. He believes he is destined to prevent chaos, and it is precisely at this moment that the world around him begins to radically transform. The signs of danger intensify, and what were once just conversations with the dead now become a true supernatural apocalypse. The dead begin to rise, zombies emerge from the graves, the city plunges into a state of collective despair. But there is a question you need to ask yourself now. Did all this really happen, or was it Norman's mind amplifying his own crisis? The more Norman becomes convinced that he is fulfilling a sacred mission, the more intense and uncontrollable the supernatural events become. This follows a classic pattern of progressive delusion, in which the person creates a narrative where they are the only agent capable of preventing a catastrophe. This gives meaning to their pain, their loneliness, their social exclusion. The mind constructs an entire world around this belief, and the film shows exactly that. Not as a clear fantasy, but as a distorted reality told through Norman's eyes. The film's universe begins to revolve around him, and nothing happens without his presence. All the action depends on his decisions, emotions, and beliefs. He is the center of everything, and this is not just protagonism, it's a sign. It is in this context that the witch, Agatha, emerges. She is described as a child who was also misunderstood, called strange, judged by the town, condemned for being different. Do you see the parallel? The witch is not just a villain or a magical threat. She can be a direct projection of Norman's own greatest fears: fear of rejection, fear of being labeled dangerous, fear of becoming the monster everyone believes him to be. When you put these pieces together, a new layer is revealed. Perhaps Norman wasn't facing a witch, but his own reflection, a distorted version of himself, constructed to justify all the turmoil he created around himself. And the more he confronts this figure, the more the city collapses. The storm in the sky, the zombies walking the streets, the screams, the collective fear, all of this manifests as Norman delves deeper into the mission he created. But what if it's all just a mental simulation, a psychotic episode where the brain constructs an epic narrative to cope with real trauma? The elements are too symbolic to be ignored. The city fears him, then depends on him. The adults reject him, then acclaim him. The enemies become victims. And the final confrontation, instead of being physical, is emotional. He doesn't destroy the witch. He talks to her. He understands her. He calms her. This doesn't seem like the climax of a supernatural adventure. It seems like an internal battle, a reconciliation with something that haunts him from within. And while all this unfolds, the film never confirms with absolute certainty that it's real. We see what Norman sees all the time. There's no detachment. There's no scene that proves without a doubt that everything happening isn't being filtered through his perception. And this puts us inside his mind without any warning. The audience is dragged into the delirium and only begins to realize this when they are already completely involved. And it's at this moment that we begin to see the hidden signs that were there from the beginning, small details that point to something much darker. Because if this theory is real, what happens at the end of the film may not be liberation. It may just be a pause in the torment. And this raises a new question, perhaps the most disturbing of all. If everything we've seen in ParaNorman it was nothing more than an outbreak, so the city was never truly in danger. There was no ancient curse, no undead roaming the streets, no witch seeking revenge. All of that, every zombie, every lightning bolt cutting across the sky, every scene of collective panic may have been just a reflection of a collapsing mind trying to create logic where there was only pain. Norman, isolated, misunderstood, labeled as strange by everyone around him, constructed a reality where he was finally needed, where he had a purpose, where all the suffering made sense, where he was the only one capable of saving the world. And that's exactly what makes this theory so powerful. It completely reverses what we believed about the film. Because if none of that existed outside his mind, then everything we witnessed was, in fact, a dramatization of a psychotic episode. The final battle between Norman and the witch may have been just a projection, a dramatization of the internal conflict between who he is and who the world says he is. The witch, Agatha, represents more than just a wronged spirit. She may be a symbolic construct of anger, repressed pain, and the fear of becoming exactly what others say he is. When Norman confronts Agatha, it's not just a child facing a spirit. It's a lonely boy trying to come to terms with his own identity. And when everything seemingly resolves itself, when the sky clears, the city calms down, and Norman is finally recognized by others. Perhaps this happy ending isn't what it seems. What if this ending isn't real? What if it's just a temporary stabilization of the crisis? A mental reorganization, as happens after a psychotic episode. Some would interpret it as a working treatment. Others would say it's a new layer of delusion. After all, the film ends with Norman watching television next to her dead grandmother. That alone shatters any sense of reality. We return to the starting point, to the detail that went unnoticed at the beginning, the constant presence of something that only he sees, only he hears, only he interacts with. This final detail may indicate that nothing has truly changed. It could be that he simply returned to a state of calm within his own disorder, that he created once again a reality where he is accepted, where he is seen, where his condition is not an illness, but a gift. It's a form of self-protection. And that's even more disturbing, because if this theory is correct, then Norman didn't overcome a curse. He overcame, for a moment, the collapse of his own mind. Or perhaps not even that. Maybe he just found a safe place within his own breakdown, and is still there, living a comforting fantasy where everything makes sense, where everyone finally sees him, where he's no longer a strange boy, but a hero. If that's the case, then the true story of ParaNorman It was never about the other world, about ghosts or zombies. It was about a child's desperate attempt to feel like he belonged, even if it meant completely abandoning reality. And that changes absolutely everything. The interpretation of the film transforms, the genre dissolves, and supernatural terror gives way to a much more real terror, that of living trapped inside one's own mind with no one to notice. So tell me, have you ever watched a movie about ghosts, or about a boy fighting against his own mind? And if that's true, what else has cinema ever made us believe was supernatural? Because maybe, just maybe, none of this was just fiction. If you've made it this far, it's because this theory has really grabbed you, and maybe, like me, you'll never be able to watch it again. ParaNorman likewise. So subscribe to the channel now, because there are many more videos like this coming. Dark interpretations, hidden secrets, and theories that turn everything upside down. And if this video made you think, gave you goosebumps, or even made you doubt your own memory, comment below, nothing was real. That way, I'll know who's stayed until the end and is still on this journey through the mysteries of cinema. Don't forget to like the video, because that shows you want more videos like this, and share this video with a friend who also loves films with hidden layers. Maybe they've never noticed this either.